This week on Painting Lines.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, it's a requirement I play in Wimbledon, but it's not a requirement I try."
I personally would like to see Medvedev win a title here in Wimbledon. I feel like it's not that far fetched either.
Welcome to the Painting Lines podcast, your one-stop shop for all things tennis. Join Erik and Aidan in their discussion for updates on news and pop culture, and from hot takes to betting, they've got you covered.
Ready? Welcome back to Painting Lines. Last week we kicked off Wimbledon with a deep dive into the top contenders, some dark horses, and the big question marks of the tournament. So with that being said, Aidan, why don't you kick us off with some of your big takeaways from the first week of Wimbledon?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was a little bit of a boring week. I mean, the matches were exciting, don't get me wrong, but in the end, the results were a little bit kind of expected. Like all the top seeds that we expected to make it super far are still in the tournament, and all the top seeds that we were like, these guys might lose a little early, ended up losing. Rude, Tsitsipas, Rublev, who we mentioned lost in the first round. Like these are guys that were such big question marks. We didn't know what to expect from them. But while they were top seeds, it was like, okay, we weren't super shocked that they lost. So that's one aspect. But also, like I said, there were some exciting matches. Like there were a lot of 2-set comebacks. Actually, there were 11 through the fourth round. So
Whoa.
that is the most of all time in I believe in any Grand Slam. So exciting matches, not super exciting results.
Whoa. Yeah, so pretty standard week. And I love the, 2-set comebacks just because that's like the epitome of Grand Slam tennis. It's anyone's game or anyone's match at this point.
Yeah, and it also gives that extra little bit of experience value where like this would have been a crazy tournament if it was a best of three because so many guys would have lost early that we expected to go pretty far.
Yeah, I know. When you put it like that's pretty crazy. But let's get into the upsets. I know we mentioned Rublev last week. But do you think he's done? Because I feel like he needs to make some serious adjustments, and that probably starts with getting a new coach. Like if he doesn't, I don't know how the future of his career looks.
Yeah, it's just so tough to say. I mean, when you look at him and you're like, okay, this dude was doing terrible, and then all of a sudden he wins a Masters 1000 tournaments, and then after that comes back and has not been the same. It's like, how do you
Hmm.
judge this guy's level? He's good enough to win a Masters 1000 tournament, and yet he's also losing in the first round of the Grand Slam. Really, just impossible to say.
Yeah, maybe he needs to bring on a sports psychologist or something, man.
Yeah, he needs to listen to our suggestion about that. I feel like we've been saying that for months, but he uh he obviously isn't a listener. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think a sports psychologist, someone to talk to him about his attitude on the court and forgetting the last point. It's just a major issue for him, and something's got to change if he wants to have consistent results at these big tournaments.
Definitely. And let's get into the next guy, Rude. So shout out on that bet of the week also. That was a nice one. But was this even an upset, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why the odds were
You
so
know,
juicy, is because
yeah.
it's like Rude is so just anti-grass. I don't even know what to say about it. Like, you expect these top players to care about all the surfaces, to care about, like, think of Agassi in his book, how much he cared about the fact that he was able to win the French Open. He was like, the biggest thing is being able to win on all of the surfaces.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, it seems like Rude is like, I don't really care about winning on Wimbledon. He's so focused on maybe winning the French Open first. Maybe he'll start to care about winning on other surfaces once he is able to get a Grand Slam on a different surface. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is, but it's so clear that he just doesn't really give a shit on grass compared to how he does on other surfaces.
Oh yeah, he's literally just there to play his one or two matches and then jet off. I don't even know if because I think he stays and plays doubles, so he's just there to have fun. I guess if you look at it, like the dude grinds during the clay season, so he might as well take some time off and kind of enjoy. I guess the grass season is kind of an off season for him.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, it's a requirement I play in Wimbledon, but it's not a requirement I try."
Yeah, exactly. Um, How about Herkosh? This was a bummer because he did lose, but he was forced to retire because of an injury. Um, I saw him going deep, remember, in our last week's episode.
Yeah, you're like
Doing
locked for
well.
the quarters. And I'll be honest, I kind of agreed with you. I was like, this guy has the game to make it that far, and then obviously has a body breakdown in this
Hmm.
match. And it's like the one thing that could really stop him, it seems like, other than playing a really top guy, was him beating himself on this surface with an injury like this. I don't really know what to say about it, but it does seem like it was a pattern in this tournament that some guys were facing some injuries.
Oh yeah, big time. And we'll cover the injuries later on. But the last guy I want to mention here is Tsitsipas, just because he was one of those guys that you mentioned. He is a top player, but what did we really expect from him? And of course, he loses to Rusevori pretty early.
Yeah, I think it kind of emphasized what we were talking about a couple months back during the clay season. Like Tsitsipas won a tournament one week, Rude won a tournament the next week, and it was like it just showed how much of clay specialists these guys are. That like on clay, they are the top contenders. They are considered expected guys to be in the finals or at least in the semis. And then you come onto grass, and it's like, okay, these guys are not expected to be anywhere. And then on
Hmm.
hard court, it's like they could be really good, they could be nowhere. It's really weird to try and judge that. Like we're coming from a situation with guys like the big three or the big four where they were great on all surfaces. And I think without them being there, you're going to have more guys that are specialists on certain surfaces. And that's what we're starting to see now. And the shift back to that is going to have to be almost a reset in expectations, I think, for tennis fans.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think these guys are just starting to embrace their role as a specialist. And what you mentioned lastly about the fans maybe shifting their expectations, I think we're seeing someone who's well-rounded in Alcaraz and Sinner on all surfaces too, which is good to see because they're not specialists by any means. They're just great players.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a guy like Zverev or even Medvedev, where like not they're not necessarily experts on the non-hard court surfaces. Like Zverev it definitely isn't a grass court specialist, but he's able to make the fourth round here. You look at Medvedev, not a clay court specialist by any means, hates playing on clay, but still makes the fourth round of the French Open. So it's like you have Sinner and Alcaraz who are like the top contenders at every tournament and every surface they're playing on, and then you have guys like Zverev and Medvedev who are still going to play pretty well on those surfaces, even if they're not necessarily the favorites.
Yeah, just a big reset of expectations then, huh? But
100%.
let's get into the favorites. Let's start talking about my favorite topic, the people that should be doing well and are
Yeah.
doing well.
Yeah.
Like the sinners of the world. I feel like there's really nothing out of the ordinary in this tournament.
100%. I mean, Sinner, I think he's never felt like he's been in danger this tournament. He had that match against Berrettini where there were a bunch of kind of close sets,
Yeah.
but it was kind of how you expected it to go against a big server where the sets were close, but you never really felt like Sinner was in danger because you kind of knew that he would get more points in those tie breaks and end up taking the match in 3 or 4 sets.
Yeah, it was pretty funny seeing an all Italian matchup here because these are two big Italian players. And I wonder who fans like more in this instance. Is it like the guy who's hot right now, number one Sinner, or is it, the beloved Berrettini where he's just all over Italy in, advertisements and doing his Hugo Boss, whatnot. I
Well,
feel like it's a win-win for the fans.
it's a win-win for the Italian fans, but I feel like that's kind of like asking, oh, who are they going to like more, Federer or Wawrinka? It's like, yeah, Wawrinka's popular,
Ah,
but it's like Sinner's the number one
yeah.
guy in the world.
Yeah, I guess, but there was Berrettini walked so Sinner could run. Like think
Yeah,
about Berrettini 3 years ago, 3, 4 years ago. Like there
yeah,
is a special place in their hearts for him, but it's kind of like out with the old, in with the new.
yeah, especially because Berrettini never reached the level Sinner has.
Oh yeah, I
Like
know.
Sinner is at such a different level right now. It's like unanimous, essentially the best player in the world, and it's hard to. It's really tough to see him losing a match, but
Hmm.
we'll see what happens. But yeah, I definitely think that he's looked very comfortable this tournament.
Yeah, and how about Alcaraz? Business as usual. He's taking
Exactly. I
care of
mean,
it.
like I said, there have been kind of boring results for some of these guys. Like Alcaraz definitely has been playing super well. And I feel like while he has had that close match against Tiafo,
Hmm.
it's like you see that match start to kind of shift back in his favor, and you're like, okay, I guess it's over for Tiafo. I feel like Tiafo needed to close that match out in like 3 sets for it to really go his way. Once Alcaraz got any sort of momentum, I feel like Alcaraz was gonna be able to bring himself back into it.
Yeah, I know. I feel like Alcaraz is that type of guy that the longer the match goes on, the more momentum he gets. Like if the match goes to 5, you know he's gonna win. And other guys like that kind of come to mind, like Djokovic, Nadal, just ultra clutch players that just kind of get that second win and that burst of energy and like kind of will you out of the match. And it's just exciting to see that.
Yeah, but he will have a tough matchup coming up in that next round against Tommy Paul, who has been playing super well on grass. So that'll definitely be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, this could go 5 too.
100%,
Some
100%. And
potential
both of these
there.
guys are super athletic, so could be a very like physical match.
Yeah, I know. Looking forward to that one. How about Medvedev? Dude's just cruising. Feel like I personally would like to see Medvedev win a title here in Wimbledon. I feel like it's not that far fetched either.
100%. That would be such a cool thing. I mean, he was
Yeah.
so close at the Australian Open and like hasn't won a Grand Slam since 2021 when he won his first one, obviously. And I just feel like it's so close to him feeling like he's being surpassed by these other guys because he's been past them in ranking and kind of in prestige too by Sinner and Alcaraz. And all of a sudden, he feels like he's sort of an outsider looking in at being a top contender at these slams. Will he get through Sinner? I don't know. It's really, really tough to say. And even after that, he wouldn't have an easy path, right?
No, yeah, definitely. And I think the thing about Medvedev, he just doesn't get a lot of love either. Like he was number 1 in the world at some point too, and I feel like the hype wasn't really around him. So just for him to win this title would be huge. And then also, like you said, his path to get there. I feel like if he can make it through center, which is no easy feat by any means, he does have a chance because I do see Tommy Paul either beating Alcaraz and then Medvedev having an easier time with Tommy Paul than Carlos, or Tommy pushes Alcaraz enough where Alcaraz may be fatigued for the next match against Medvedev, and Medvedev does his Medvedev thing and just wears his opponent down. So I feel like if he can get through, obviously Sinner and then either Alcaraz or Paul, it's wide open.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think the thing about it is like he really just needs to come up with a different strategy to beat Center. Like we've watched him play Center these last couple of times. Like I just keep thinking of that match they had in Miami and
Oh,
how completely lost Medvedev looked on the court against Sinner. Sinner just completely embarrassed him out there. There's no other way to put it. And I think he's just going to have to, hopefully, he comes out there with a different strategy than just trying to play how he normally does, because that clearly doesn't work. I mean, maybe the grass will help him out and his game will
mhm.
work much more effectively than it did on hard court. But he says he's a hard court specialist, and obviously, where they're playing on grass. So we'll see what happens there. But it's hard not to see Sinner kind of dominating him again.
Yeah, Sinner picked him apart. But you would think, with the whole problem solving aspect of tennis, Medvedev should come into this match with adjustments. And it's also one of those things, yeah, he's been beaten the last 5 times. Maybe could it go on? Could it keep going on? Like maybe it finally has to go back. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just his day.
right? Like eventually he's got to win one.
100%. Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like the next guy, Djokovic, I really don't have much to say. It's Djokovic.
Yeah, it's weird though, because like coming into the tournament, there were so many questions about Djokovic, and then through these first few rounds, you're like, oh, wait a second, oh, I forgot that this guy is like absolutely dominant at Wimbledon. Like, came in that first round, clobbered the guy, had a couple missteps in those next couple rounds, but then comes out today against Runa and just absolutely
Oh.
whoops him in 3 sets, and you're like, okay, well, this guy looks like he has to be the favorite now again.
Yeah, dismantled Runa. And I thought there would be kind of like a bigger rivalry there just because, previous matches, but no, it was not even close.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Americans at Wimbledon now. I was looking forward to Korda, but unfortunately, first round exit. He was supposed to play Davidovich Fokina, ends up playing Pericard, the French guy, and loses a five setter, which was very disappointing. Because Korda was a guy that you were expecting as an American to go pretty far.
Yeah, I think I definitely expected him to do at least decent. But then again,
Hmm.
Pericard, like he made the round of 16, and I think
Yeah.
he's a guy that people were just weren't prepared for. Like his massive serve is just shocking people. And like this dude just exploded onto the scene, kind of like I feel like he came out of nowhere and made a final a few weeks ago, and then since then has been just showing up in these tournaments. Like, oh, who is this massive French
Yeah.
dude that just clobbers his serve and just blows it by people?
Yeah, massive guys. He's 6'8". I
Oh my
think
god.
it, yeah, because Zverev and Medvedev are 6'6", but
Yeah.
they move a lot better. I've noticed in Pericard, and maybe Pericard will get better. I'm not sure how old he is, if he's a young guy
I'm pretty
or
sure he's
not.
pretty young.
But yeah, I feel like he's one of those guys. Like you said, he clobbers the ball, but then he also gets passed a lot and like looks like he doesn't really. He's meticulous in how he plays his points. Like he's not going to waste energy retrieving balls like a Deminar or a Tommy Paul would.
Yeah, I mean, it would be impossible, I feel like, for him to do that given like how big he is.
Yeah. So what exactly happened though? So once Davidovich Fokina pulled out, did Pericard get
I think he was just a
a
lucky loser. Like
wow?
how
That's
like how
great then.
yeah, Goffin was a lucky loser
Yeah.
that and he played against Mahach in the first round, replacing
Hmm.
Murray. It's like, yeah, they have the guys that qualify, and then if someone pulls out at the last second, then a lucky loser can get a spot.
All right. Well, good for him for making it fourth round.
Yeah, yeah, pretty cool.
And next guy, Tiafo, he gets two wins here. He played Alcaraz pretty well and then just kind of faded after that fourth set. My opinion here is this is something to hold your head high of if you're Francis, because he hasn't really been playing that well this season. And he came in, got two wins, and had a respectable loss to Alcaraz.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be mad about losing to Alcaraz. Like it's just a tough
Yeah.
draw. Like think of Berrettini. It's like, yeah, you lost in the second round, but it was to Sinner. So it's
Hmm.
sometimes just a bummer with your draw. Also, but like I wouldn't really consider it a success still. Like
Hmm.
it's just you it's not a failure because he lost because of who he lost to, but it's not a success either because it's like if he had been doing better before this, he wouldn't have had to play Alcaraz so early. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a weird balance there because it's like if he had come in as a seeded player or like a higher seeded player, he would have been
Hmm.
able to play Alcaraz later on in the tournament, or maybe would have avoided playing Alcaraz because there have been guys that have gotten more favorable draws than this, and it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
do sometimes playing well before it's like setting yourself up for success. What's the old saying? It's like success is where luck meets preparation.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you were going to say something like, uh failure to prepare is preparing to fail, or
Yeah, I mean they're all kind of the same
proper
message, right?
preparation yeah, the 7 P's. This was a good one. Proper
Yeah.
preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Yeah, no, but
I think
but
that was a Coach Backus saying.
yeah, in the end, the idea is like you have to set yourself up to succeed. And while Tiafo got a couple of wins, he didn't really set himself up for a great success in this tournament based on how he'd been playing earlier in the year. And now he's kind of in
Hmm.
a position where like he needs to go into the U.S. Open and have a massive result to kind of stabilize his rankings because he made the quarterfinals last year, which is obviously a pretty big result. So if he loses in like the second round there,
Ooh,
he might fall into like the 40s or 50s of rankings.
geez, I was just gonna say this. I think is a step in like rebuilding that confidence. But if he does not perform at the U.S. Open, I think his confidence level will just plummet with his ranking.
Yeah, 100%.
Uh, all right. Let's get into Sheldon. He had a pretty good run, fourth round. I feel like he was one of those guys where we kind of put him as like a question mark slash dark horse. Like he could do well, but then he could also lose first round and we wouldn't be surprised. I thought he, had an impressive win against Shapovalov, who is an impressive grass player. He was even a semifinalist at Wimbledon a few
Yeah.
years ago. So I think big or pretty successful tournament for Ben.
Yeah, I give Ben a lot more sort of breathing room on this one because obviously fourth round is a respectable result, top 16 in the tournament, and he lost to Sinner, who is a good opponent. It's also like I feel like Shelton has room to develop on grass. Like he's still so young. It's like I feel like the next couple years he may continue to build in success on both grass and clay courts, and as he continues to build on those and gets better on all the on hard court as well, it's like he may build into like a top 5 level player, but we'll see what happens.
Mhm. Yeah, also pretty cool that his dad had also made it to the fourth round in Wimbledon too. So
Yeah,
there's like that family history.
100%, 100%.
All right, next guy, Nakashima.
Yeah,
This was a good run. I feel like third round for him. He was on my radar after a semifinal run in Stuttgart, and I don't know. I think his game just he plays well on grass, and this is a guy that would benefit from a longer grass season.
yeah. I feel like there are definitely guys that would like the grass season to be
Yeah,
longer than 10% of the year. I
yeah.
mean, it's a decent run. I think he backed up kind of where his ranking was and kind of outperformed it a little bit, making the third round, but not super crazy to me. I mean, it's like when you think about it, like the third round isn't that nuts for a guy
Mhm.
like in the top 60. Like it's a good job. It's one more round than you were expecting to do, but I'm not gonna go into the next tournament and be like Nakashima. I expect him to win the tournament.
Yeah, no, nothing crazy. Just a, I guess, good look for the Americans.
Yeah, but I feel like it's just
Speaking,
it's just
mhm.
another thing where it's like Nakashima, you're like, yeah, good job for the Americans, but it's not that top level that we're looking for. It's like
No,
it's
I
giving
know, I know.
Americans more of like, hey, we have another guy that can make it like in through a couple rounds at a big tournament. But it's not like we have a guy that's actually contending to win the whole
Yeah, yeah, I would trade in all of our guys. No, I'm kidding.
thing.
I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah.
Eubanks though, I had pretty high hopes for him coming in just after his run last year. I guess I don't know why. I feel like it's that just a logical fallacy, just thinking of his run from last year, thinking, oh, maybe some magic can happen this year.
Yeah, I think also it's like you look at where he was last year, and it's like, okay, this dude had like won a tournament. He'd made some deep runs at grass tournaments, and then he made this big run at Wimbledon. But since then, like he hasn't been even near that same level. Like I haven't. I feel like he hasn't even won a couple rounds at any tournament since Wimbledon last year. He's kind of been uh, a guy that's just been slowly on the downturn since then. And now with this loss, he's kind of just going to drop off the map a little bit. He may have to start playing qualifiers these tournaments again.
Mm.
And it's a bummer for him because obviously he had so much momentum after Wimbledon last year, but he just wasn't able to carry it into this year. It's almost like what we were looking at with Shelton after that big run at the Australian
Mm.
Open in 2023. Had the massive run, had a bunch of momentum, didn't do great, but then was able to make that huge run at the US Open. And that was like a second chance to carry the momentum. And after the US Open, he was able to carry the momentum on, unlike he was unable to after the Australian Open.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those situations like tennis's version of a one-hit wonder.
Yeah. It's like you have a one hit wonder, and then Eubanks
Yeah.
has a chance to like continue that, and he didn't.
Mhm.
Shelton seemed like he might be a one hit wonder, but then had a second hit and was able to build off the second one.
Yeah, yeah, more established.
Yeah.
Tommy Paul, I am pumped. He's into the quarters. He's got a tough matchup against Alcaraz coming up, but overall, very impressed with his performance. And I could potentially see an upset brewing here.
I agree. I mean,
I
I might be leaning towards that in bet of the week, to be honest. But
little sneak peek.
exactly. But yeah, I definitely agree. He has a chance here. I mean, not to
Hmm.
say Alcaraz is going to get pushover by any means. The last year's champ here and is a very solid grass court player, but I think Tommy has a chance. But speaking of Americans like still in the tournament, Taylor Fritz is doing great as well.
Yeah, I am pumped for Taylor Fritz because you're seeing another guy. I feel like he's got all the momentum, all the energy. Had an amazing match against Zverev today where he came back down to love, and Zverev kind of discounted him a little bit. I don't know if you caught the post-game interview, but Zverev was like, "Yeah, I was basically playing on one leg. I couldn't jump to serve. Yeah, he played all right, but it wasn't like it was a great tennis match. I mean, I could barely move out there. Like typical Zverev
Yeah.
fashion."
I mean, I'll be honest, like
Yeah.
that match was not the most exciting in terms of like it feeling close.
Yeah.
Like there were, I think, no break points even in the second and fourth set. I think there were 6 break points in the match. Like the
Wow.
entire
Okay.
an entire 5-set match that had multiple sets go to tie breaks. There were like 6 break points in the entire match. So it really feels like a serve fest out there. But yeah,
A serve fest. I love
yeah,
it.
I still feel like it's a big win for Taylor.
Totally. And then he had that little drama with Rinderknecht earlier in the week, that beef. He when they shook hands at the net, he told him to have a nice flight home because this kind of dates back to last year's Roland Garros. I guess Taylor, remember he beat him at Roland Garros and then
Is that when
totally
he did the
shushed.
hush? Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh stone cold. And then before their match, Rinderknecht went out and started making all these comments like, "Oh, well, the match we're playing isn't in Paris, so maybe he won't complain about the crowd this time. Like, oh, you won't be a baby." He essentially pissed off Taylor Fritz, which was not the right move because he came out and just kicked his ass. And I
Yeah.
love this energy from Fritz too. I thought it was hilarious because Rinderknecht was like, "I'm not going home. I'm playing doubles," and then Taylor's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. Enjoy your
Yeah.
doubles."
It's like that's such a terrible comeback. Oh, I have doubles still, man. It's like, okay, dude.
Yeah, it's like, all right, have fun in your mixed doubles. No, but
Yeah.
seriously, I think if you're gonna talk shit, at least be able to back it up.
It's not even that. It's like when you if you talk shit and you got to be able to like when you lose be like I have to accept the repercussions of my actions.
Yes.
It's like he wasn't able to there.
Yeah, but don't you love this energy from Fritz? I feel like he's kind of a stoic guy, so you don't really see much emotion from him. And even when he was being asked about this, he's kind of like, "Yeah, I mean, when people usually talk about me before the match, it doesn't really end well for them." Like
Yeah. I think
he's
it's
a
it's
killer.
good to have some personality. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. All right. Well, in other news, I guess we can talk about Runa. I didn't really know what to expect here. He made it to the fourth round. I am mixed feelings. Like on the one hand, I'm like, oh, it's Runa. He should make it here. And then the other, I'm like, oh wow, I'm a little surprised he made
Yeah.
it this far because he was a big question mark coming in.
Yeah, I feel like he's just been all over the place this year. Like I don't know what to expect from him in any tournament. But in the end, not a bad result. Fourth round. It's kind of like Dimitrov. I said he was gonna make the fourth round and then lose. That's ended up how it was going. I mean, obviously there were other circumstances there, but yeah, Rune, it's like, yeah, did I expect him to make the semifinal? No. Did I expect him to lose in the first round? Also no. So it's like
Yeah.
he ended up making it about as far as I expected. Had a couple close matches, had that comeback from 2 sets down, but in the end, like just was not at the same level of Djokovic today.
Yeah. In the end, not part of the new big three, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's a big thing. Like, I can't believe he said that whole thing about, oh, yeah, we're going to be the next big three, me, Sinner, Alcaraz. Like, dude, it's not like you're number
Ah.
3 in the world and they're the top 2. It's like you're number 18. Like, there's borderline other young players that could definitely take your spot. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
just,
he is number one. He's number one in short length.
yeah,
He's got the
exactly.
shortest shorts
Exactly.
on
The
tour.
shortest short. I mean, I think Mahach also has some pretty short shorts out
Oh,
there.
good point. Good
But
point.
yeah, there's a competition there. They're gonna be like not wearing shorts to try and make them shorter.
Oh my God.
But yeah,
Another guy I want to touch on is Feast with a fourth round run.
another
Wait,
young
I
guy.
gotta hear your pronunciation. Give it to me. Artur Feast.
I think
Come
it's
on, you're
yeah,
so good at it.
Arthur Fils. I don't know.
Yes,
Yeah, but
you're the resident French
pronunciation expert.
accent. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Um,
another young guy. Yeah, great job making the fourth round from him. He's a guy where it's like, yeah, making the fourth round is outperforming for sure, and like didn't let himself down. I don't think in his matches really. Like he lost to Deminar, who has shown himself to be a very solid player on grass this year.
for sure. And with Feast, he had obviously second place in the junior final. So I feel like that was when he kind of exploded onto the scene, for lack of a better word, and then has been a little quiet since.
Well, I feel like all of last year he was kind of one of the top young guys, and like I feel
Yes,
like he was
yes.
really expected to be honestly to win the next gen finals. I think that was a little bit of a
Yeah,
disappointment for
yeah.
him, but I do think that he has been playing pretty solid overall this year. Nothing crazy, but has been kind of settling into being a high ranking player.
Yeah, definitely. Next I want to talk about injuries because I saw an account post something about injuries, basically that grass tennis is a huge liability to players. It's too dangerous. Too many players get hurt. There shouldn't be a Masters 1000 series on grass. And I just want to bring this up because it's a pretty interesting point because we have Dimitrov having to retire against Medvedev, Hurkacz retired, Zverev hurt his knee, Tiafo hurt his knee. I just want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, what do you think? Because there are pretty relevant injuries.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is the most dangerous surface in terms of clay and hard court being the other two. I mean, it's why they got rid of like carpet as a surface. I think there were too many guys like getting their feet stuck in it and falling on that. I don't know if it really makes sense to get rid of it. Like it's the original surface, and I don't think they're ever even going to consider getting rid of it because of how Wimbledon is the most prestigious tournament on the tour. But I do kind of understand where they're coming from in terms of like this is why the season is so short is because it's the most likely place for players to get like seriously hurt. Like you misstep all of a sudden, hyperextend your knee, and you're out for like the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they'll ever get rid of grass tournaments, but that is basically the reason why it's so short.
Yeah.
And it's slick out there. It rains a lot. It gets wet. It's slippery.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have they had to like suspend play this year?
Yeah, but apparently Zverev said he'll be good for the Olympics. That his injury, he basically said in like a fancier way, he has a bone bruise and then like slightly
Yeah. I
tore
mean,
something. Like
in other
it's
words, he was
fine.
making an excuse. He was like, I
Yeah,
wasn't 100% for this match, but don't worry about next tournament.
yeah. I have a contusion on the left ligament. Like, just all
Yeah,
right, bro. You have a
exactly.
bruise on your knee.
Throw medical terms out there and
Yeah,
hope that something
exactly.
sticks. Yeah. And then one thing I also want to bring up in terms of like this tournament overall is like I talked about it already, but like luck can play such a massive role in this tournament. Like we talked about guys playing tough opponents. Shelton had to play Sinner. Tiafo had to play Alcaraz early. I was looking at the runs people have had, and like Musetti has had such an easy run so far this tournament,
Yeah.
to be honest. Like he's had no ranked opponents to the quarterfinals. And even if he beat Fritz in the quarters, he would have made the semis without having to play a guy in the top 10.
Jeez, yeah. And that's crazy when money's on the line too,
Yeah, I
you
just
know?
think it's kind of funny that how like a tournament can just open up like that because I think his part of the like his quarter of the draw hypothetically had Rublev and Tsitsipas, I think, in it. And then those guys both go out early, and all of a sudden he can make it to the quarterfinals without having to play a ranked opponent.
That's crazy. I wonder if he was drooling when he saw his draw.
Yeah, he's like,
He's
holy,
like, let's
holy
go.
shit,
Yeah.
this may be my chance.
But I mean, hey, credit for him for capitalizing.
100%.
Like there is an opportunity and he's seizing it. So
Exactly.
I don't like, obviously I'm not gonna say I don't like it, but kind of wish he was challenged anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, you ready to hop into segments?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Alrighty. What's new in tennis? What'd you see this week?
Dude, I saw a tweet and it was actually sent to me by my non-tennis friend, which I thought was interesting. And it was Novak Djokovic quoted saying, if we don't do something about it globally, they're going to convert all the tennis clubs into paddle or pickleball. And I think this is a pretty serious point. And there was more on it, like the longer tweet. Basically, I summarized some of the main points. So, attracting younger talent, tennis needs to do a better job at doing that. He compared tennis to F1 marketing and how good F1 is doing their marketing. Becoming or the fact that it is a global sport and they're really pushing it. Um, and then that leads right into tennis being historic and global, but it's not as popular. So, tennis is a worldwide sport, but it's like 9 or 10 on the most popular sports in the world, which, you have football, baseball, basketball, which are primarily United States, like one country, and they're top three sports in the world. Um, let's see. The focus is mostly on the slams. So tennis is a long season. There's tons of tournaments, but you really only have people paying attention to it for four tournaments a year, like the big
Yeah.
slams. So he's saying like get people into the other tournaments still.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I kind of want to just focus on that one before you
Yeah,
go on to the
yeah,
last
yeah.
little bit. Like
Hmm.
that is such a massive point. Is like you talk to anybody outside of like someone that follows tennis year round, like a really big tennis fan, it's like people will check in on tennis. Like if someone's just a general sports fan, they'll check in on tennis for like maybe the French Open, maybe the US Open and Wimbledon, but the rest of the year is completely off of their mind. And it's
Yeah.
like the tennis is literally the entire year. If you could get people to care about even a couple more tournaments, all of a sudden the tennis audience would grow so massively.
Oh, I 100% agree. There was a guy I went to play tennis with the other day. Not the other day, it was actually a few months ago, but he was like, yeah, I even I really just watched the slams, but I turned on this random tournament. It was like the Italian Open or something on tennis TV. I'm like, dude, that's not a random tournament,
Yeah, you're like, this
but
is
it
like
just
one of
goes
the
to
best
show.
tournaments in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. Anyway, so a couple more points here. The accessibility, obviously tennis is can be expensive as far as like joining a club or buying a racket, getting all the equipment, getting a
Restringing a racket.
coach, restringing, exactly. And then the last one is club economics. So he was saying, I think for every like one tennis court, you can fit like four pickleball courts, two paddleball courts. So it just makes sense for the clubs to convert the tennis courts into paddle and pickle because they can get more players onto it, thus making more money. Um, this whole thing, it got me a little nervous, but then it also got me a little excited to see that Novak is still passionate about this sport and coming up on his retirement. Maybe he'll like actually be doing something to focus on preserving this great, great sport.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things I want to mention about
Hmm.
these points is like attracting younger talent and the accessibility aspect. It's like, yeah, pickleball, I think, is really has a chance to capitalize, which is a little scary for tennis because it's so much easier for a sport like pickleball to capitalize on young people to be like, hey, you could try to play tennis and it's really difficult starting out, or you could try to play pickleball where it's like 10 times easier starting out. Like
Hmm.
you take a pickleball racket and anyone can pick it up and start playing. It's
Yeah.
like if you have someone that picks up a tennis racket randomly, they're just going to be completely lost out there. It's like you look at athletes from other sports and they're trying to play tennis and it's like they look ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah, they're like
But
goofy.
it's because tennis is a difficult sport to start out with. And then pickleball can be like, hey, you could do that, or you could play this much easier version of it essentially. And like Query was saying, you can get 90% good at pickleball like very quickly. You may not be a
Hmm.
professional pickleball player, but you can get to 90% very easily. And having that accessibility of you can get pretty good at it is a lot more difficult in tennis. And I don't know what you can do about that in terms of making the sport more accessible. I feel like you just have to make it so that people want to play tennis more than they want to play pickleball or
Hmm.
paddle.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And tennis still is that like the king of the racket sports. It just needs to stay there. Because like
Yeah.
tennis is the epitome. I think we're gonna see a world where these like paddle and pickle and tennis are going to have to coexist. Like there will be um there will be some compromise at clubs. I think it's inevitable. Like you may, instead of seeing 10 tennis courts, you might see five,
Yeah, bummer.
which is, yeah, a huge bummer. Anyway, let's move on. What did you see in the news this week?
I saw in a little bit lighter news and a little bit away from Wimbledon is Nadal and Ruud are actually going to be playing doubles in Bastad at the ATP 250 there. It's interesting.
Oh,
They've actually both won the tournament in singles, but I am wondering about this because I'm like, will it be a success? Like they're obviously both great in singles at this tournament. Will they be a success in doubles? And B does this like Nadal preparing for uh, the Olympic doubles? Because obviously that's also going to be on clay. Is he saying, "Hey, I got to be fully prepped for this because I don't want to like lose in the first round"?
yeah, that's a good point. I think it's always funny too because you have like double specialists, people who only play doubles, and I wonder if they look at like two top singles who just get together to play doubles as like a, oh, you're not, you like, if they win, is it expected, or like, because they're two great singles players who come together to play doubles. Like, should they beat a doubles team that only plays doubles?
Yeah,
No,
I feel
right?
like it's one of those things where it's like a different style of playing doubles almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you look at singles players playing doubles, and it's like they're gonna play as if almost as if they're the only person on the court, but then they have like an extra guy with them. And I feel like when you have doubles, people that play doubles specifically, they're much more cohesive.
Yeah, yeah, good point. I'm thinking about that Roland Garros final where Ruud was playing Nadal, and they were both waiting in the hallway, and Nadal's like doing his warm ups, like getting jacked
Yeah,
up, and the camera just moves to Ruud's face, and he literally looks like he's about to shit his pants.
he's like, Is it time to go yet? Are we
Yeah,
ready to
he's like,
go?
that's when you that the match was won right
Yeah,
there.
intimidation.
It was won right before
Yeah.
they even walked out on the court.
Alrighty,
Uh
how about bet of the week? What'd you go for this week?
yeah, bet of the week. I'm actually doing a parlay. So I'm taking
Ah,
Fritz and Sinner together to get minus 179
still
odds.
the favorite.
I Yeah, still a favorite. I felt like the lines were so lopsided in these quarters, and I wasn't really confident in like either guy. But I mean, we talked about this earlier. Sinner has beaten Medvedev the last five times they've played. I feel like he just has the better matchup. And then I like Fritz over Musetti for exactly what we just talked about. Musetti kind of had an easy run into the quarters, and I think Fritz is just a better player. Plus, he has some momentum coming in from the Zverev match. Was too nervous to throw Djokovic in there just because I don't know. I think the last time he played Deminar actually won. And then, Tommy Paul Alcaraz could go either way. So,
Yeah.
you
I mean,
know,
my only thing about this one is like, I feel like also like Fritz has momentum from the Zverev match, but it's like, is he also like, did that take something out of him having to be out on the court for 3.5 hours?
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll see. What about you? Who are you taking?
I mean, like I kind of hinted at earlier, I'm going Tommy Paul plus 310 over Alcaraz. We broke it down a little bit already, but they have a really close head to head. Tommy's been playing great on grass, and overall this year he's been playing great. And I think, to be honest, I think it's time that there was a big shock in this tournament. Like there have been some upsets, but nothing that's been like, oh my god, I can't believe that just happened. And I think it's time. And I think Tommy will get it done here.
Dude, I really, really hope you're right. I just can't bet against Alcaraz.
Yeah, it's tough to bet against the
It's
last year's
so
champ
tough.
and the
I
guy that's been
know.
playing super well just won the last Grand Slam. So
I know. But no, hopefully you're right.
yeah. Anyway, how about match of the week?
Match of the week. So I took Shelton outlasting Harris. It was 4-6, 7-6, 6-7, 6-3, 7-6. This is just everything you love about grass tennis because you had the mix of, both players coming up to the net, some great net points, and then also just very back and forth tense sets, as you could see, three
Mm-hmm.
tiebreakers. Um, Shelton closed it out in the fifth set in a tiebreaker, which I love when matches go fifth set tiebreaker because then you're just on the edge of your seat, like
Yeah.
so nervous. And I think it really shows the mental strength and fortitude of the other player that's able to close it out. And then also what I said earlier, Ben Shelton's dad had beat Boris Becker in Wimbledon. So I feel like this is just super cool to have that that family history tied together. And all in all, just great match. So
Yeah.
definitely recommend the highlights if you haven't seen
Super
it.
fun. I mean, that's just it's so great to see Shelton making a deeper run here, and I think that's him being able to fight through in a match like that is definitely a positive from him.
Yeah, his energy is unmatched too. You just love, like, he brings that college tennis atmosphere to Wimbledon too, which is, usually a place that it doesn't tend to be that rowdy. But another thing I forgot to mention, dude, people were because it was on 4th of July and people were shouting USA, and then there's a nickname Independence Day.
Of course.
Yeah,
Got to get the
yeah.
pun in
So
there.
got to.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your match of the week?
I went for Bautista beating Fognini in 5. I like this match because it was kind of a blast from the past. Like it feels like a matchup we could have seen at like Wimbledon 2018.
Yeah.
Another thing is like just the crazy difference in like the styles of how they played. Like Bautista plays a relatively like safe game where like he doesn't make a ton of errors, but he also doesn't hit a crazy amount of winners. Whereas like Fognini is insanely wild. Like just some stats that I pulled from the match was Fognini hit 23 aces with 15 double faults compared to Bautista hitting 4 aces with 4 double faults. And then Fognini hit 87 winners with 77 unforced errors. And Bautista conversely hit 30 winners with 39 unforced errors. So it's like Fognini's just going all out for it.
I
And
was gonna
Bautista's
say.
like just trying to keep it in. But anyway, like it was a really crazy back and forth match. A lot of breaks. Felt really like it could go either way. And it seemed just like Fognini's game kind of let him down in some big moments. And that's why he didn't end up winning the match. But it was really close. Felt like it could have gone to either guy.
Yeah, seems like Panini was going balls to the wall, whereas Batista Agut was just playing percentage tennis.
Yeah, he's like,
But
I mean, eventually he's gonna miss.
dude, never would I thought that Batista Agut and Fanini would be a match of the week. Like you said, this is probably from like what you would see in 2018. So it's good to see that little blast from the past.
Exactly.
All right, and that's the show. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Painting Lines Podcast. Feel free to shoot us a DM or email us any questions or thoughts at paintinglinespodcast@gmail.com.